Alright, this is my submission for Questing for Glory 3. This is East 1 Chronicles Plus. It is a remake of the original action RPG, Ancient East Vanished Omen, as you can see in the top there. This remake was released in either 2009, 2011, and it expands a lot of things in the original game, kind of redoes some of the maps, updates the graphics a lot, gives it some rockin' new tunes for its soundtrack, and overall is a quite amazing game, and it is a wonderful contribution to the world of action RPGs, as it was one of the earliest ones, and it's influenced a lot of games to this day. And so, without further ado, the run is done on easy mode, just because it's by far the fastest and easiest, of course. But without further ado, I will get started in 3, 2, 1, go! Alright, so in this game we play as Adol Kristen, who is a young, intrepid adventurer in the making, as it were, who hears about a strange phenomena going on in a country called Asteria, which is an island nation that has recently been surrounded by a gigantic vortex or storm sea that has blocked entry and exit from the island for the most part. However, rumors have begun to come from the island that monsters have appeared and had started attacking people, and Adol, being the adventurous young soul that he is, decides to sail straight into the storm sea, crashes into the island, luckily, washes ashore, and after recovering for a little bit, begins his adventure, which is the first of many adventures that he will go on. And here we just have about a minute of text to go through. Going through text in this game is very easy because if I just hold the circle button on a PS4 controller, it auto-progresses through text, which is very, very nice. And we can begin our adventure. So the combat in this game is quite unique. Basically, the best way I can describe it is, imagine that you're just playing a gigantic carnival game of bumper cars for the entire time, with strategy involved. And essentially the way it works is that you kill enemies by running into them. However, if you run straight into the middle of an enemy's hitbox, you will take damage as well as them. So you have to basically attack enemies off the center of their hitbox in order to deal damage to them without taking any damage in return. I can't really show that off now because I don't have any equipment on, so I would either just clink off of enemies harmlessly, or I would just take damage myself, which, yeah, that's a little bit of a problem. However, whoops, I bought a wing, which is an item that allows you to warp back to that town we just visited. I also decided to have my equip menu be around the wing. Right there, you saw the very first clip in this game. It saves probably like 30 seconds to do. It's pretty simple to set up. Consistency, it's more or less consistent. I can usually get it within the first 5 times, roughly. But the reason we do that is we come here to grab this item called the Golden Vase, which we can sell for a bunch of money that we will use to purchase another item that will give us more money so that we can afford a full arrangement of equipment. So I'm going to buy a wing here and sell the Golden Vase, sell it for 2,000 gold, and now purchase the Sapphire Ring, which is important, and it will leave. And now we take that Sapphire Ring and we go to this bar here. And inside the bar, we have to talk to the bartender so he can say that we are A-okay to be here. And we talk to this guy, who it turns out his wedding ring actually was a sapphire ring that got stolen, or went missing, rather. And he can't find it. He's like, oh, my wife's gonna kill me. Turns out the pawn shop owner is not the most reputable of individuals, and so we have purchased the sapphire ring, and in return he gives us a bunch of money and some nice experience points. And here we are buying a sword, a shield, and armor that is required in order to progress the game. The game will not let us progress with the story until we have one of each in our inventory. And in order to progress, we go here and we talk to this girl named Sarah, who's a fortune teller, who kind of gives us the rundown of the plot in this game. Basically, the monsters appearing in the land is because of some ancient prophecy that one day darkness would threaten to overshroud the land, and the only way to stop it was a hero would come and read all 6 of these special books called the Books of Ys. And in reading these books, it would cause magical things to happen, and the day would be saved. Yay! So we are apparently that hero, and so we are going to go on our merry adventure to collect all 6 books and save the world. Now, something to note about this game and about the routing that we do in this run is that the upcoming is the very first boss, Jenocres, and he is an interesting fight. There are a couple ways to actually do the fight, because the way the damage calculations work in this game is kind of interesting at times. Essentially, there are really 2 strats we do to fight the boss. There's level 4 Jenocres, which is a faster fight and a much safer fight that takes an extra 2 minutes to set up to do the fight. And then there's level 2 Jenocres, which is what I'm going to be doing, which is a much more dangerous setup. However, because we don't have to do the setup to get to level 4, and we can just get to level 2 from giving the Sapphire Ring back and then from talking to Sarah, which talking to Sarah is required anyway, then it really is the way that does it with the least amount of issue. However, I am going to save because this fight is very dangerous. I have to hit him 25 times, I believe, and I take 5 damage per hit from this fire, and invincibility frames do not exist in this game, so this fight's kind of scary. However, with practice, it becomes more or less consistent, and the nice thing about it is that I can die twice, and it will break even. So this will save 2 minutes if I don't die at all. It'll save about maybe 30 seconds if I die once, depending on how far into the fight whoops, that was bad. Depending on how far into the fight I get before I die, that is. And I break even or lose a little bit of time if I beat him on the 3rd try. So ideally I will do it within the first 2 tries, which isn't too bad, all things considered. Sometimes he's a little rude and likes to plant his hitbox like right between the flames, so you'll take damage when you really shouldn't. And other times he will teleport, like he just did right there, where he teleports right in front of you. And you just kind of get knocked into flames and die and be really sad. Like that. That's unfortunate. However, not a huge deal. I have my splits running just to give a little bit of a comparison. I should probably switch it from my PV to, like, average. There, I did it. Whoops, that's my sum of best, not my average. Whoops, one more time. There we go. Just so you can kind of see how this compares. But, again, one death basically kills the PV, but since I'm not going for a PV, I'm just going to show off this run. That doesn't really matter. And again, even 2 deaths is still faster, depending on the deaths, of course. Even 2 deaths is still faster than doing the level 4 strat. And I'd like to show off the level 4 strat, or level 2 strat, because it is pretty cool if you can actually see it done well. Plus, if this does end up being a race, I will need to, because Korzik is really good at this game, and I don't want to lose 2 minutes to him just because of the strats I use. Yeah. Oof. In a marathon setting, I would probably call serious time for this section, just so I could focus on it. Whoops. And one more hit will do it. And that was actually really close to not being a hit. However, that's Jenocres. That's level 2 strat. Again, fairly consistent. I'm a little behind my average, because my average does usually get it within the first 1 or 2 kills, so... And that was kind of a slow first death, so... It is what it is, though, and you are in a really bad spot, so I'm going to lose time to this guy. So that was showing off what I mentioned earlier, about how if you hit an enemy in the center of their hitbox, you take return damage. That enemy just happened to be lined up in a really bad way. And this game really likes single-tile wide hallways, where you just kind of have to bump into enemies face first in order to get them out, which is unfortunate. And this enemy position is a little questionable, but it should be fine. There we go. So the reason we're going into this shrine is because there's a book in here. However, this first trip we will actually not be grabbing the book. We are going to be doing a little bit of sequence breaking. In order to do that, we have to pick up the prison key and the treasure box key. The treasure box key will allow us to open every single treasure chest in the game. Up to this point, if we were to walk up to most of them, they would have a message pop up that says that it's locked. This alleviates that issue, however, and it allows us to do the sequence break that was aforementioned. However, we do need to do a little bit of story-related stuff first in order to get some nice experience points, and because it's something we have to do anyway, we might as well do it now. So we go in here, and we meet this strange girl by the name of Fina. Okay, I got the double. Right there is a trick to get double experience from accepting saving her. However, she tells us that the culprit, that she has amnesia. However, the person that locked her up was a strange man in a black cape. And if you talk to a bunch of people in town, they mention that a man in a black cape has been stealing all of the silver in the country. Because it turns out silver is super magical in this series and can kill demons / monsters. Which is kind of something that foils the plans of the evil bad guy. So he's trying to stop that. However, we will eventually, spoilers, find something that is silver that will be able to defeat the main bad guy. Because he has a, like, armor thing that is impenetrable to anything that's not made of silver. Because plot devices. So, we find Fina, and we agree to escort her out of the shrine, because we are good people. So, we do this little escort thing. I'm lining myself up with the doors there, to make sure she makes it through. And here I grab a safety item. It's a shield ring. It halves all the damage we take outside of boss fights. Within boss fights, it doesn't make a difference, which this item would be very OP if it did half damage in boss fights, but just from normal enemies, it will have all the damage you take, which is good, because we're about to get to the scariest part of the run. And the part where I'd say most of my runs die, other than Jenocres shenanigans. But first, we escort Fina out here. And again, we'd have to do this regardless of if we... Oops. Sorry. I was distracted quickly. We have to do this regardless of whether or not we finish the shrine now, because it is a flag that gets set in the story to allow us to get to the last dungeon. So we just do it now, since we have to leave anyway, to do a sequence break that will make the rest of the dungeon a lot shorter, which we will do now. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to go into the second dungeon of the game. We're technically not supposed to be going this way, however, there's literally nothing stopping us from doing so. There's no keyhole, there's no whatever. The only thing that's stopping us, really, is that the enemies in here are super scary at this level. So I will be saving fairly frequently throughout here, just because I don't want to die. But there's a bunch of really... Whoops, you're in a weird spot. There's a bunch of really nice items. First of all is the silver armor. Like I mentioned, silver is really special, and this actually happens to be the second best armor in the game. So finding that right after having the tier 1 armor is very, very nice. It gives us a huge boost to our defense, which is incredible. And I don't know where that guy went. There's a couple other items we will be grabbing in here. I also need to equip this wing. Over here... Ooh. We find a silver harmonica, which is a progression item. So you'd have to double dip the mines regardless, because there's a couple items here that you need to grab in order to finish them. So it's just helps do it now. Okay, so you guys are in a good spot, and so there's 2 of these eye enemies, and they can just be in really bad places like that, which was not too bad. And we get a Rototree seed, which lets us talk to trees. That'll become important later, I promise. We also eat the seed immediately, since there's that little bit of time when we warp that we can do inputs but not actually move. However, that was the first trip in the mines. It actually went really well. And we go to this girl who looks somewhat similar to Fina somehow, and her name is Rhea. She is a traveling minstrel who happens to be missing a silver harmonica that we found in a mine that was overflowing with demons. So that's, or monsters, either one. So, you know, that's not suspicious at all. However, she plays us a nice little melody there. We get a nice little bit of healing, because in this game, when you are in an area that is marked as safe, and you stand still, you get healing. It's very nice there because you're forced to stand still. Most times during the run, we wouldn't be standing still because standing still is slow. So we buy another wing. My brain just totally blanked out for a second. We buy another wing, and we will now go and pick up the reason why we had to get that harmonica to Rhea. During that scene, we saw like a little cutscene of a tree. Basically, that's a hint of like, oh, you're supposed to use the Rhoda seed and go talk to that tree there. Oops, I messed up the clip. There we go. Second try. That's pretty good. You're supposed to go talk to the tree because the tree has the second best sword in the game. Just right here. And we get the Silver Sword, which is both a huge boost to defense. You saw I went from about 120 to 160. So a huge boost to offense, and also it is required to beat the game in general, because like I mentioned earlier, a weapon made of silver is required to destroy the final boss. And now that we have purchased such an item, we are now able to go and finish the first dungeon a lot faster. You'll see the benefits of us getting the extra levels from fighting the enemies, or from completing those quests, and from picking up the silver sword. Almost said silver shield. We also have to talk to, whoops, not Java, talk to Fina here. There's a number of like flags, progression flags you have to set in the game in order to access the final dungeon that involve talking to Java and Fina a lot. And that was one of them. So I just set them now because it works out that if you talk to them every time you run through the village, you only have to revisit the village once in order to set all the flags, which is quite nice. However, yeah, because we have the Silver Sword and are going to be level 7 by the time we fight the next boss, we will be able to kill the next boss in 4 hits, which is quite wonderful. Also, you see I'm taking way less damage from running face first into these enemies now. The defense and offense scaling in this game is quite absurd. Because, yeah, I'm taking 1 damage from just charging face first into these enemies. I still don't want to make a habit out of it, because you see I get knocked back when I do that, and that probably loses like a second and a half every time that happens, so that adds up over the course of time. Even just hitting enemies in general slows you down a little bit. So pretty soon we'll actually be maxing our level, like very early on. This game requires you to max your level in order to beat the 3rd boss. So we will be maxing our level, and then after that point I kind of want to be avoiding any enemy that I can, because otherwise it's just very slow. Whoops, there we go. There we go. And here we get the Silver Shield, which, again, whoops. I'm messing up my menus. There we go. My fingers are just kind of jumpy right now. That's fun. Yeah, Silver Shield, second best shield in the game. It's quite wonderful. And we are equipped to now go fight the boss. There's one more item, or 2 more items really, we have to go pick up. Here there is a potion that is kind of a safety potion. Heal potions heal you to full HP when you use them. There's a section that's kind of dangerous later on when we're going to be grinding to max level. It can potentially just go very awry, especially since normally you wouldn't pick up the shield ring if you're going for like a record or something, because it costs like 10 seconds to go for. And we need to pick up this marble key because we need 2 keys to get to the boss fight. However, the grind can still go quite bad if I'm not careful, and I'll need a potion anyway. In the final dungeon, right before the second to last boss, we use one so that we can be a little more reckless when going through the last dungeon. And there's a safety potion in the last dungeon that we would pick up if I end up using the potion here. Hopefully that doesn't happen, just so I don't have to pick up 2 of them, but, you know, it's nice to have in case. So here's Nick Tilger. He is a giant centipede of doom and terror and sadness. Whoops. Oh, I never hit level 7. So that's funny. I was actually a little too optimal in my movements there, so I didn't hit level 7. So that was supposed to take 4 hits, but it's fine. But there we pick up the first book of Ys, and we should now go report to Sarah, tell her that we have the book. However, first I'm going to go to the store and go shopping. because I do not want to forget to buy this wing, because otherwise I have to backtrack out of the second dungeon, and that's a really long backtrack I don't want to make. So yeah, we buy a wing. We also buy a mirror. It freezes all enemies in place when it's used. It will get exactly 1 use during the run. Also, there's this old man here that tells us that Sarah was murdered by the man in a black cape, which is depressing. She was a very nice NPC because she let you skip the exposition. However, she did have the second book of Ys, and she instructed that it be given to us, upon her death. So we have the second book now. So we are a third of the way there and almost halfway through the run. The game kind of starts giving us the books like candy upcoming. However, we will now make our trek into the second dungeon and clear it out. I am low on experience points, which is a little unfortunate. However, I'll be able to make that up very quickly here. Should just be able to kill like these enemies here. Oops. And quickly make up the experience deficit. Especially if these enemies just keep running into me like that. So I'm already caught up. I want to be level 8 by the time I go into the new floor of the dungeon that I didn't go to initially. And I'm already basically there. So yeah, and I have all of my equipment. Good. So I should get a level off of the next enemy that I kill, which should be another face guy, and we're level 8, which is exactly where I need to be. Now, I'm going to be saving relatively frequently in here, because some of the enemies in here can just kind of combo you and deal a lot of damage that you don't really want to take at this point. So again, I have the potion. I don't want to use it, because that will cost me time later to use it. So here, it is on this floor that we'll be getting level 10 a little bit later. There's a specific enemy group that I will be fighting over and over again, and hoping for good RNG. And here we get the Dharm Key. This is the item we need to actually go fight the boss, eventually. And we will begin our trek to the grinding spot. It'll be off of these enemies, just there's a spot where two of those enemies spawn very close to each other. Oops, that was weird. Sometimes you'll just get hits like that because of the way the geometry in this game functions. Alright, so this is the grinding spot. So basically, there's these two enemy spawn points that are like just north and south of each other, more or less. And so basically, we run up and down until we hit level 10, which is the max level in this game. And now that I'm set up, I'm actually going to save. Correction, I'm going to save now. So this is where a lot of RNG comes into play at this section. Basically, I haven't talked about this. The way enemy spawns work is that enemies have a set place where they spawn in when they are off screen, when they're dead and off screen of at all. So once they spawn, they wander around completely randomly, and I'm now level 9, so I'm going to save again. They spawn, or after they spawn, they run around totally randomly until they become within aggro range of at all. As you can see there, that guy kind of wandered to a weird spot. And so, as a result, what we're hoping for is that the enemies spawn and then they run directly towards us and don't run off to the side or don't run away. When stuff like this happens, we lose a little bit of time each instance that it happens. I'm also taking a lot of damage I would rather not be taking. So there's an instance where we can lose a couple seconds just because of RNG and we can't really do anything about it. I hope he just didn't spawn. Okay, we're good. What the... It's a little off the sweet spot. Another instance of RNG that actually can play in our favor, though, is that, like I mentioned, once enemies spawn, they run in a completely random direction. And... please don't tell me. Okay, good. They run in completely random directions, so that means that potentially an enemy can, for example, spawn one of those there's knights to the south of me, and there's also more bug enemies to the north of me that I killed when I was on my way here. Potentially what can happen is that a bug enemy from the north or a knight from the south will happen to wander over here to this area. When that happens, that means I can get a little bit of extra experience points and skip potentially one of these cycles. And this grind is going horribly right now. These enemies are not being kind. Also, I'm probably going to have to use my... oh, yep, I'm going to have to use my potion, which is very unfortunate. However, crap happens. Yeah, this is one of the worst grinds I've actually seen, and in many cases, this is actually nothing I can really do about this. This is just RNG being rude. And watch, now that I use that, I'm not going to take any more damage, and I'll have wasted it. It's fine, I just need to remember to pick it up so I can be fine later. Alright, so I'm almost done here. 1 or 2 more kills and I'll be good. Okay, so I can kill the rest of the enemies on my way, because there's a couple knights that spawn. Yeah, see, that one wandered pretty close to me, which is good, because I don't think I'll level off of 1 more kill. Oops. Okay, cool, I got the level. So that's level 10. Could have gone better, could have gone... it went pretty bad. It still could have gone worse, though. So, I mentioned that RNG. Now, welcome to Vagulian. This is literally the biggest piece of garbage that has ever existed in the series. Is this boss fight. The way this boss fight works is 100% RNG. Basically, he turns into these bats, during which I can't hit him. It's basically like a toxic cloud of death and pain if I walk anywhere near those bats. And you see every once in a while, he reforms into a human, or into a vampire bat form. And he, like, does this weird little pose thing where he's like, ah, or whatever. And during that time, I can hit him. How long he takes between cycles is random. Basically, what you see is he spreads out into those little bats, and then he does that, like, spinny thing right there that he just did. We lovingly refer to it as a troll cycle. He can give you up to 3 of those per unmorph. He can also give you 0 of them. Not like that. So he can do that up to 3 times, and every time he does it, it wastes about 7 seconds. And also, the time he takes between unmorphing, like when he decides to do those cycles, is also random. It ranges by about 5 to 9 seconds every time. And so you can see how time can just be lost in, or gained, in huge numbers of this boss. My PB, yeah, see, like right there, he happened to give like a really, really good cycle, and I just gained 10 seconds back by doing nothing. Just by getting lucky. My PB has lost about, I think, over my gold split just from shenanigans with the boss has about 30 seconds of time saved there. Just because he decided to be a jerk and not let me win. So yeah, that's a little unfortunate, but that's really the biggest thing of RNG in the run. It is unfortunate because a lot of the time on like higher end run, like on higher runs, like near the top of the leaderboard, it gets to the point where you kind of PB or don't PB based on whether or not Vagulian gives you good RNG, which kind of sucks, but it's whatever. So here we need to progress some story flags. We have 3 of the books, and there are 3 more of the books that we need to grab, and they're all in the last dungeon. However, here first we tell Jaba that her granddaughter was murdered, and she's like, oh, that's unfortunate. However, we do need to continue on, save the world. And so we tell her that. We also have to have her read the books of East to us because they're in some ancient language that we can't read. So she reads the first 3 books to us, which fulfills that requirement. We also need to talk to Fina here while she's on the docks. And she's like, I thank you for rescuing me, but I have no idea who I am still. And you're like, cool, thanks. I'm gonna leave now. And so we have to leave the town to reset the state and kind of add a layer onto the town. And we go back into Jaba's hut. And now we have to talk to Fina one more time. And speak to Jaba, and she tells us about the Devil's Tower, or Dharm Tower, which is where the final dungeon is, or it is the final dungeon, rather. It's also roughly where the next, half of the game takes place. By half, I mean like 20 minutes at worst. And she tells us to talk to her son, Gobin, about getting into the tower, and he can let us in and all that fun stuff. Here's the Thieves' Den. It was important-ish later if you talk to people. That's all you really need to know, is it was kind of important. But he's like, okay, yeah, I'll let you into the tower. I have a guy in there. His name is Dogi. He really likes breaking walls. You should look for him. He might break a wall or 2 for you. And here we are in Durham Tower, where we will be spending the next rest of the game. And this first half of Durham Tower has my favorite song in the entire East series, and one of my favorite songs in video games in general, especially this arrangement of it. It is called Tower of the Shadow of Death, and it is wonderful. However, here we do need to grab a couple of items. We have to grab this evil ring, which will be important later. Also, because I used my potion earlier, I have to pick up this backup potion. It's right in the way, so this is where you would pick up the potion if you were going for, if you skipped the safety potion in the shrine. Since it's more in the way than the other potion is. However, if you don't pick up the safety potion, then you're kind of have to deal with whatever luck you get on Vagulian. Because sometimes Vagulian can just hurt you a lot, and some of his patterns are kind of undodgeable, so that's why I feel like I like having a lot of health for the Vagulian fight specifically. So now through this section, we're basically just trying to climb the tower as fast as we can, and like I mentioned earlier, I didn't kill that enemy in one hit, huh? Like I mentioned earlier, we're trying to avoid enemy fights as much as possible. There's no reason to fight enemies. Gold is useless at this point. I don't need money. There are no more stores in this game. Also, I can't get any more experience points. Like, I can get experience points. If I were to set my EXP counter to total, you would see I will still be getting EXP. However, it's completely useless. I don't level up anymore. My stats don't grow. All killing enemies does is slow us down, waste time, and potentially make us take damage. So I'm trying to avoid enemies that I can and hope that none just get in my way. Here we fall into a trap that locks us up and we get our silver equipment stolen from us. And here we meet this guy named Ludogema. This guy's important in the level 4 route because you do a side quest involving him, and that's what gives you the XP you need to quickly get up to level 4. And here we take our water/tea/coffee break because we have to sit here and do nothing for a couple seconds. Take a nice little swig of water. And we're rescued by this guy, Dogi, who is, he gets his inspiration in life from the Kool-Aid Man. And he gives us an idol, which belongs to an old man who's in this tower. Apparently it lets him be not seen by enemies, however it does literally nothing for us. Yeah, we're completely devoid of equipment right now, which isn't too big of a deal. We will need to pick up a silver sword later, again, to beat the game. All of the silver equipment is hidden throughout this tower, and we just need to pick it up again. However, first, we do need to go visit the old man and give him his statue back, which is right here. And this is Raba. He likes to talk a lot. There's about 20 seconds of dialogue here. In the Japanese version, literally just this, you save about 6 seconds from dialogue or something. It's some stupid amount, just because of Raba. You save dialogue elsewhere in the run, or time on dialogue elsewhere in the run in the Japanese version as well. However, you literally save like 6 or 7 seconds just on Raba. It's ridiculous. But now that we've done that, we have a blue necklace, which is a special charm that protects us from curses, which all the traps in the tower count as curses. So we will wear it, and it will protect us from the trap that blocked us the first time. It is possible to not equip the necklace and trigger the trap again, in which case you'll be sent to a different jail cell where you have to wait around for Dogi to break you out. It's actually quite humorous. There is an achievement in the Steam version of this game for doing that multiple times. However, we will not be doing that because that is very, very slow. You lose like a minute or two every time it happens. But now we will be going and grabbing our silver sword back. The game intends you to get all of your silver equipment back and use it. The only one that's actually required to pick up is the sword, because the armor just is for safety. I will be picking up a different piece of a different shield later because it's not that much slower to grab it, and it gives a lot of safety on one of the bosses later on. However, again, it's not necessary, and if I were going for world record, I wouldn't pick it up. However, we will now be going and fighting the 4th boss. Like I said, we get the books a lot quicker at this point. So we'll be getting the 4th boss and getting the 4th boss, 4th book. And this is Pictomos, and I forgot to save, so hopefully I don't die. 2, 3. So the way this boss works is he throws out these like scythe things in groups of 3. And while he has the sights out, he can't throw any more at you. So ideally, you get a fight like that where he just kind of lets you, where he throws those blades and you hit him a bunch. Hopefully the blades go out really far so they take a while to come back. That's a little random, but it's nothing too bad. Sometimes the fight just hates you and you just die for no reason. I've had that happen a couple times, but it's fine. The fight went well, which is good. That's all we hope for. And we are good to move on. We also pick up a hammer, which will be important for a puzzle later. I need to remember to do the puzzle because I am infamous for forgetting the puzzle. And the enemy got in the way. So you see what I mean there? Like, it seems relatively minor, but if that happens a lot, it really adds up. So here's the puzzle I was talking about that I'm going to solve and not forget to solve, because this is slightly out of the way. So here, we use this hammer and whoops, I didn't mean to... we break this pillar. And that's the puzzle. I lost a little bit of time because I hit the square button a little early. Whoops, I'm not going the right way. Nope. That's something I haven't done in a long time. That basically wasted the time that I would have saved by remembering the puzzle. That's funny. So here there's this thing called the Devil's Corridor. It's basically a giant pipe organ that plays music that is so insidious and loud that it actually kills people by driving them insane. However, the pipes actually of the organ run through these columns, and so by breaking one of them, we deactivate the entire thing. And that's the puzzle. And we now have to proceed onward and fight the second boss of the tower and the fifth boss in the game. Or the fifth book, as I said. We get them very, very close to each other now. We'll be getting the last book from the final boss, of course, so the next one will come a lot later, but still relatively quick. Alright, and this is Klonsklard. He is the dumbest boss in this entire game. You kill him by running in circles. And sometimes you just won't do damage to him for a couple seconds. That was weird. But that was Klonsklard. And we pick up a rod, which allows us to solve the mirror puzzle that we bypassed on the way here, and we get the fifth book of Ys. Also, Rob is over there. You really don't want to talk to him or he'll waste more of your time. But here, there's a mirror puzzle. It's relatively simple to solve. You just have to go back into that mirror. Hope you don't get trolled by that night enemy because they like to be rude. And continue onward. We get a little bit of a change in music now. This song is called Tension. It's a very nice song. The song in the previous area was Dreaming. And here we pick up the Battle Shield, which is the safety shield I mentioned earlier. That makes the next boss a lot safer. It can be kind of slow because you have to go out of your way to grab it. Also, bumping into those enemies takes time, but it's well worth it because not dying to the next boss 5 times is a lot faster than dying to the boss 5 times. So, you know, you win some, you lose some. Also, these enemies are being very not nice to me right now, and I don't want to equip the Battle Shield yet. Because it's faster to do it to combine 2 menus that I have to do a little later. So here we go to Rado's Annex, which, oh, that enemy's being rude. We go here because we find out that there's actually a girl being held captive here. And so the solution to that puzzle is that you have to be evil in order to open the door. And so we have the evil ring, we equip it, we open the door, we have the blue necklace equipped so that the evil ring doesn't kill us. And we get a monocle, which allows us to read the ancient script of Ys. So we can read now. Yay! And now we have to backtrack, because there's an item that we need that's back by where I destroyed the Devil's Corridor. However, I also use that menu to equip the Battle Shield. Just, again, it's more optimal to equip it in the same menu, since we have to open that menu anyway to equip it. We do have a little bit of backtracking here. Again, I have to go back to where the Devil's Corridor was. Or where I broke the Devil's Corridor, rather. So I have to backtrack through about 4 floors, including the Mirror Maze, and the enemy was a jerk. So that's what you don't want him to do. Because if he does that, there's literally nothing you can do about it. And you just lose a couple seconds if he does that, which is unfortunate, but it's whatever. Okay, that was potentially not nice. This floor right here is affectionately known as the useless floor, because there's literally nothing in it at all. No enemies, no items, nothing at all in that floor. And that enemy's being a jerk. Again, I don't really care about the damage I'm taking because I'll use my potion before the next boss anyway. I mean, of course, if I die, that's bad, but that shouldn't happen. Knocks on wood. And here, before we talk to Mr. Bleeding out there, we do have to read the 2 books of Ys that we acquired. Volume Mesa and Volume Gemma. And we talk to him, and he's like, hey, that book used to be in my family for a really long time. How did you get it? Oh, well, here, take this random amulet thing that also was in my family. I'm sure it will be useful. And it turns out that that amulet happens to be the key to the final boss, which is the thing that held me up the longest when I play through this game casually, is because you beat the next boss, and you get to the final, and you get to the door of the final boss, and then you just suddenly can't progress. The door's locked, and you're like, what the heck? What am I supposed to do? And at that point, you're at, like, floor 25 or whatever of the tower, and so you have to backtrack all the way to floor 11 just to get this stupid amulet thing from Ludogema. And that is why everyone hates Ludogema. It's also why I have a split specifically for it, because that way I hopefully would not forget to do it in a run. Because that's a thing that happens to people occasionally. But we have to go through this mirror maze again. It's not too big of a deal. Hopefully the enemy doesn't troll me. That wasn't too bad. He didn't get in my way specifically. I just had to run around him. But now we have to make our way back up the tower. There's nothing between us, nothing we have to do between now and the next boss, other than pick up one more item. That's a sword upgrade that we need in order to fight the next boss. That's actually the strongest sword in the game. However, we still need the silver sword to beat the final boss, because it's special. Also, this floor is known as Scorpion Alley, because it's basically where the game wants to make sure that you have picked up all of the armor you can in order to run through these scorpions. However, picking up armor is really slow, so we just use a mirror there to freeze the enemies in place, which just allows us to deal damage to them instantaneously, or to deal damage to them without having to worry about lining up. Because you can't line up in a single tile-wide hallway, you just take return damage all the time. So now that we've done that, we are free to continue onward. There's a couple more floors we have to do. On this floor, if I were to go to the right, I could pick up the battle armor. However, that's very slow because it's on a completely different floor. I want to avoid as many enemies as I can. They were in very good spots, though. Sometimes they can line up in a way that's less than ideal. And on this floor, we'll be picking up the fire sword. And what I do right there is a little bit of a manipulation in order to get the enemies out of the doorway, because sometimes they don't like to get out of the doorway and you're kind of stuck. So equip the fire sword there. I take a little extra time in that menu because if you equip the evil ring while you don't have the blue necklace equipped, you just die immediately. That's happened a couple times. And it's very easy because this game uses a memory cursor to forget about that and accidentally hit the evil ring, or equip the evil ring. So I just take a little bit of extra time every time I do that menu to make sure that doesn't happen. Alright, here I'm going to get the potion ready. Oops, go left. Take a second to let that enemy come up to me. And I lined it up so that I can make my save, and time to fight the next boss. Yoglix and Emulgan. Oh, nice. That was a gold split. That was actually a really, really good fight. Oops, there we go. And I need to remember to equip this silver sword, because otherwise this next fight will be really awkward. Meaning I can't beat it at all. So here's where the door is that you need the amulet for, and I'm going to make a save here. I also didn't make a save before Yago Tsunamogen. That's kind of sketchy. Or wait, no. Did I? I think I did. I don't remember. It's a good thing I didn't die to find out. Alright, this is Dark Fact. And I'm just going to reset this because I'm not going to win that fight. Yeah, this is Dark Fact. He is, it's like a 4 or 5 second fight if you get it correctly, otherwise you die very quickly as well, so. That's Dark Fact. That's the final boss of the game. However, time is not yet. Time will be when I read the last book, which is in Dark Fact's Cloak. And yeah, I'm losing time because I had to reset there. And we read the black book, and there's a text box and time. And Jotaro's comments are about how I feel, but it's fine. That's a 44-44. That is still a quite good time. Anything sub 45 is a pretty good time in this game. So yeah, that's a 44-44. Had some questionable things happen throughout the run, but overall nothing too bad. That's why my estimate is a 50-minute estimate, so, you know, going 6 minutes under is no problem at all. But yeah, that was Dark Fact. Didn't really get to explain the fight. Basically, he just kind of flies around semi-erratic, or it seems semi-erratically, and shoots fireballs at you. His pattern is always fixed, however, so you can, if you have a setup, you can always just follow him and kill him within about 4 or 5 seconds. It's a very fast fight. It's also a very interesting fight in terms of, like, you die very quickly if you just mess up one little thing, or even sometimes you can be doing the fight right and still die. But it's not too big of a deal. Resetting on that fight, at least, like, having to load a save is pretty quick. So, no big deal. I only lost about 6 seconds from having to do that. So, having to do that. So, not too big of a deal. But yeah, that was East 1. It's a very fun game. It's a very interesting run. I enjoyed it a lot. And it is very marathon safe, since you can save literally anywhere. And even the sketchiest part of the run, which is the Jenocres fight, is fairly consistent. So yeah, that's East 1. I hope you enjoyed, and I'd love to see this get into the marathon. We'll see if Korzik submits this as a race or not. Hopefully he does, because that would be a lot of fun. Korzik's amazing at this game. He is the world record holder. He's awesome. And he's very fun to race against, and he's very knowledgeable at this game, so he's very good at answering questions as well. But yes, that was East 1. Hope you enjoyed once again. And I'm just going to let the credits roll through this video, because that's fun, and kind of gives the run a little bit of a sense of legitimacy, at least to me. But yeah. I just realized that was almost a 44-44-44. That would have been really funny. But yeah. I'm just going to mute my mic now and then cut the recording after the end of it. So yeah, thank you very much, and enjoy the credits.